Hello everyone. Today we will be starting a course Fiber Optics and Networks, starting with the first module, which is basic of optical fiber communications. So under this we will be having some of the topics covered: historical development of optical fibers, general system or a general communication system, and differences between this general communication system and optical fiber communication system, its advantages, disadvantages, and basic ideas of ray theory transmission. So coming to the first concept of historical development, we just look into the spectrum which is used for the requirement of a bandwidth in optical fiber communication. So that is within a range of 1.7 micrometer, that is the operating wavelength used by this optical fibers, 1.7 micrometer to zero point 0.8 micrometer. So that is the range which is 0.8 minimum to 1.7 micrometer the maximum. So range is 0.8 to 1.7 micrometer. Then considering the historical development, we look into the various generations of optical fibers, how the information transfer is done, which is a bit rate, and the repeater spacing, that is the repeaters which are used between each optical links, and operating wavelengths, and the type of semiconductors which are used in this system. So coming to the first generation, we have the bit rate, or what we call it as a transfer rate of 45 Mbps. Okay, so 45 Mbps, so that is a bit rate, and repeater spacing was around 10 kilometers, so that is the repeater spacing. Uh, then second generation, if I look into, we have a bit rate ranging from 100 Mbps to 1.7 Gbps, so that in this generation the transfer rate or bit rate has been increased from 45 to 100 Mbps. So that is a minimum bit rate which can be considered under second generation. Then we have a repeater spacing. Earlier the repeater spacing in first generation was 10 kilometer. Now it is increased to 15 kilometer. Then the operating wavelength, which was not described in first generation, here it is to be 1.3 micrometer. And the semiconductor which is used in this is gallium arsenide. So that is a semiconductor used in this during this generation. Then in third generation, bitrate is enhanced to 10 Gbps. Repeater spacing is improved to 100 kilometer, so that the number of repeaters used for the entire link has been reduced. So which is a development done in third generation of optical communication. Then operating wavelength is 1.55 micrometers. Then in the fourth generation, there is a technique which was developed, that is WDM, which is a wavelength division multiplexing process. So in this wavelength division multiplexing, the wavelengths, or if I consider several optical sources, and these optical sources are emitting light of different wavelengths, and these wavelengths are multiplexed together. So they are done using a WDM block, which is wavelength division multiplexing process. So the light of different wavelengths are being combined in this process. So that was introduced in the fourth generation of optical communication. Then here the bitrate is increased to 10 Tbps. So that is a very high bitrate achieved in the during the fourth generation, and repeater spacing is increased above 10,000 kilometers. So that is a very good idea of in during the fourth generation, that is repeater spacing is being in terms of thousands of kilometers. Then the operating wavelength is from 1.45 to 1.62 micrometer. So this is the operating wavelength used here. Then coming to the fifth generation. So during the fifth generation, Raman amplification technique or Raman amplifiers are used, and optical isolators have been introduced so that the amplification of the signal can be easily done using Raman amplifiers and optical isolators. So that is the optical component which is used in this process or used in this generation. Then bitrate is 40 to 160 Gbps, so slight reduction in terms of bitrate. And repeater spacing is enhanced from 10,000 kilometers to 24,000 to 35,000 kilometers. So that is the spacing which is improved. And operating wavelength is from 1.53 to 1.57 micrometer. So that is the thing which is considered here during the examination. That was about the historical development, considering all the 5 generations based on the bit rate, based on repeater spacing, based on the device or semiconductor device used, and based on the operating wavelength. Then coming to the next, we have a general system. If I consider any communication, it is just a transfer of information from one point to the other. So we have a transmitter and we have a receiver, and we have a transmission medium. So whatever information we want to transfer, we are going to transfer it through a transmitting device, which is a transmitter, and the receiver is going to receive that information. But during this process of transmitting the transmission and reception, a lot of various things happen. So considering that later into account, we will first discuss about the general system, optical communication system later. So if I consider the general system, we have information source which is producing some information, or which is having some information. So that is actually a source of information. And this information has to be transferred to a particular point, which is a destination in the diagram. So if I look into this, we can see that there is a communication system which constitutes a transmitter, a receiver, and a transmission medium. So we have different types of transmission mediums considered, and if I go with the general communication system, we normally use a copper wire or a coaxial cable, which is a transmission medium. So if I consider a transmitter or a modulator, normally when I consider an information source, which is a message or a message signal, and this message signal will have some information in that, and this message cannot be directly sent through a medium to a destination or to a particular point. So what has to be done? The signal has to be modulated. It means that the modulating signal has to be superimposed with a high frequency carrier wave. So we call the process, or we term the process as a modulation. So a modulator is used to perform this modulation process. And once the modulation is done with a high frequency carrier wave, by superimposing the modulating signal, we get a modulated wave. Since a carrier wave is a high frequency wave, we need the power, which is a major concern when you go with the transmitter, because transmitter power plays a very important role during the process of transmission in any communication system. So we go with the process of modulation, and once the signal is modulated, it is transmitted over a transmission medium, which is a channel or a communication medium, and it may be a coaxial cable or a copper wire. So normally here we consider a copper wire, and the information is transferred to the destination by the receiver, where the demodulation process or detection is done, so that the information which is the message signal is separated from a high frequency carrier wave, which is from a modulated signal. That is about a general system. Then if I look into the optical communication system, we find a slight change in the block representation of optical communication. Initially, if I consider the information source, that remains same, and the destination is same. So it is nothing but transferring the information from point A to point B. So if I consider the information source is producing some information, so giving some information to the optical fiber communication system, and in this we are going to consider the transmission medium as an optical fiber, and the information cannot be directly transmitted into the optical fiber, cannot be directly propagated into the optical fiber, because the optical fiber accepts the information only in the form of a light. So we are going to convert it we are going to convert the input electrical quantity into an optical signal. And this conversion of electrical signal or electrical quantity into an optical signal is done by an optical source. So here in this diagram you can see that the optical source is used to convert the electrical signal into an optical signal or into light. And the optical sources can be LED or a laser, so which is a light emitting diode or a laser. And we can have several types of light emitting diodes or several types of laser. Based on the requirement, we are going to use this in a communication system. And if I go with the electrical transmit is nothing but a driving circuit which is required to drive this particular source. So we are going to drive this optical source, maybe a laser. So laser is driven by a driver circuit, laser driver circuit. So that is nothing but an electrical transmit part in the block diagram. And the signal which is converted into optical is transmitted or propagated through the optical fiber, and it is fed to an optical detector. And the main function of the optical detector is to convert the optical signal into an electrical quantity. And this optical detector is a photo detector which is used to convert the optical signal to an electrical quantity. We can have different types of optical detectors. So if I consider an example under optical detector, it may be a pin photodiode or it may be a AP diode, that is avalanche photodiode. So using this, either APD or a pin photodetector, we can perform a process of conversion from optical to electrical. And here in the block you can also see that there is an electrical receive part, which is nothing but the electrical circuit or electrical elements like an amplifier circuit or maybe an equalizer circuit. Normally when we consider a process of propagation or process of transmission in any of the medium, due to various noise sources or due to some noise which gets introduced into the channel, or during the process of conversion from electrical to optical or from optical to electrical, which may be the noise introduced by the photodetector, which is generally a photodetector noise, which may affect the amplitude of a particular signal at the receiving part. So this signal has to be amplified. So it may be a weak signal, it has to be enhanced, it has to be strengthened. So that is done by using an amplifier circuit. So we use an amplifier as an electrical receive part in the block. And also we can have some equalizer circuits also. We can see that with the digital optical fiber link later. In that we just look into the consideration of amplifier and equalizer. So this is how the optical communication system works, and we can find the difference among the general communication system and the optical communication system in terms of blocks and in terms of conversions. Then we have an example of typical digital optical fiber link. So here we are going to consider an example where the digital information source, or what we call it as a binary values, are being transferred. It is a set of information from one point to the other. But whenever I consider digital data, the digital data cannot be directly transmitted due to various drawbacks or various problems. We are going to encode it first using an encoder. So the first step used in this signal transmission is encoding, which is done by using an encoder. And this encoded data is transmitted or transferred to a laser, which is an optical source. So that the electrical or the information what we consider has to be compatible with the optical fiber, which is nothing but a light. So the conversion from electrical to optical is done using the laser here in this particular example. And the laser drive circuit is used to drive this particular optical source, which is a laser. And the converted optical signal is fed to an optical fiber, which is a transmission medium in the optical fiber link, and the converted signal is to be again reconverted to an electrical quantity. So that is done by using an optical source. So here we can see that is the AP diode or avalanche photodiode, which is used to convert the optical signal into an electrical quantity. So later we see that there is an amplifier and an equalizer. Already I have informed you about amplifier. Since the signals may be distorted or signal may be corrupted, or maybe there might be some signal degradation during the process of propagation, the amplifier signal, the signal has to be amplified, so using an amplifier circuit. And to remove some distortions, to remove some unwanted components in the signal, we are supposed to equalize the signal, so which is done by an equalizer circuit. Then we have encoded at the input, so we are going to decode it using a decoder. So finally we are going to get the digital output. So this is how the optical fiber using a digital transmission is considered, or a digital transmission is considered. Later, we have a very important part of the optical fiber communication, that is an advantage of optical fiber communication. So it's a very important one. Why these optical fibers are preferred as a transmission medium in comparison with the copper wire or a coaxial cable? So that is a very important concept. Why optical fibers? So because these optical fibers have various advantages, many advantages over the conventional cables. So first one is about bandwidth. So it has got enormous potential bandwidth. So bandwidth here, if I consider, it is the information carrying capacity of the device. So if I consider the optical fiber here, if I consider that it has got enormous potential bandwidth, means the bandwidth is very high. So if the bandwidth is very high, the information carrying capacity of such fibers will be very high. So it is normally in the range of 10 power 13 to 10 power 16 hertz. So that is the range of band. It is nothing but a frequency range. Bandwidth, normally we say that it is the difference in the frequency components. So if the bandwidth is higher and higher, the information carrying capacity will be more and more. So that is the first advantage of an optical fiber communication. Then what we have is a small size and weight. If I consider the diameter of the optical fiber, the diameter of the optical fiber is very small. So the diameter of the fiber may be even smaller than the diameter of the human hair. So that is the advantage of having the optical fiber in terms of its size. So it is very small in size. And weight. Due to the small size, the weight of the optical fiber is very less. So that carrying it or transporting it from one point to the other will be very easy in comparison with the copper wires or coaxial cables, because they are heavy. Their size is not small as the optical fibers. Then we have the electrical isolation. So whenever I consider any optical fiber, first we look into a concept of any electrical isolation. It means that if the optical fibers are running through any electrical environments, then it should be properly isolated. There should not be any shocks, there should not be any hazards due to the improper isolation. So that is a major advantage of optical fiber. It has got a very good electrical isolation. So the outer layer, or what we call it as the jacket of the optical fiber, is nothing but an isolator, which is an isolation. The outer layer is very strong electrical isolator. Then we have the immunity to interference and crosstalk. Whenever we consider any optical fibers or any communication system, and the information being transmitted through any medium, there might be some interference by any other signals into the system, like there might be interference by there might be electromagnetic interference, there might be radio frequency interference. So due to this RF and EMI, what we call it as electromagnetic interference, is very less in optical fibers. So that it has got a very high immunity towards the interference of RF and electromagnetic signals. So that is a very big advantage of this, very good advantage of this. And crosstalk. If many optical fibers are tied together, what we call it as optical fibers are say they are bonded together, tied together, there might be a chances of crosstalk between the information in the optical fibers. So if I consider 3, 4 or more than that optical fibers are tied together, and the information in each of the fibers are different and they are transmitted to different points, then there might be a crosstalk which exists between these fibers, but in this it is very less. So crosstalk is negligible when we consider the optical fibers in comparison with the conventional cables. So that is a comparison what we make normally while considering the advantage and disadvantages of optical fibers. Then we have a signal security. Signal security is very important so that for many of the applications like banking, telecommunication and defense applications, signal security is a major concern. So whatever information we are going to transfer, it should be highly secure. So it has got a very good signal security. So that is one of the advantage of optical fiber. Then we have a low transmission loss. So low transmission loss. So if I consider the transmission loss, which is normally an attenuation, so it is very less in optical fiber, which is from 0 dB per kilometer to 0.5 dB per kilometer. So that is a maximum transmission loss or maximum attenuation what we can consider in an optical fiber. It is very less, zero point 0.2 to 0.5 dB per kilometer. So for 1 kilometer optical fiber, we can expect around 0.2 to 0.5 dB loss. So that is very less in comparison with conventional fiber. So in a conventional fiber, it ranges from 2 dB to 5 dB. So that is almost 10 times in comparison with optical fibers. So this optical fibers has got very less transmission loss. Then ruggedness and flexibility. See, whenever I consider the optical fiber, so it is very rigid because we are going to prepare the optical fiber by applying a pressure or what we call it as tensile stress onto the optical fiber so that it gets uniformly distributed throughout the length. So if I consider the ruggedness of the optical fiber, pressure is applied equally from one end of the fiber to other end of the fiber. So that is ruggedness. So and flexibility. So flexibility is considered if I want to have the optical fiber to be bent, because any optical fiber link cannot be um, established in a straight path, so it has to be bent. The optical fibers has to be bent, so that is very flexible. So it should be very flexible enough so that you can easily bend, whereas in copper wires it is very difficult to bend the copper wires. But even the flexibility is a very important part of the optical fiber, but the bending of the optical fiber may also lead to so many problems. So flexibility is fine, but if I consider at what extent I can bend the fiber, so that is taken care of a radius of curvature, taken care by this radius of curvature whenever I bend the optical fiber. Or if optical fibers are bent more or more bent above this radius of curvature, then it results in fiber bending losses. So, or it may break the optical fiber. So that may be a drawback of this also. But it is a major advantage if I compare it with the conventional cables. Then system reliability and ease of maintenance. So if I consider system reliability, the reliability of the optical fiber is somewhere between 20 to 30 years. So the life of an optical fiber is normally about 20 years. So it is highly reliable. So whatever system you develop using this optical fiber is very reliable. So that is very reliable and ease of maintenance. And the maintenance is very less. Once the system is installed or once the system is configured, the maintenance issue is very rarely arised. So that is in terms of maintenance. Then potential low cost. So whenever I consider the concept of potential low cost, it is related to the fabrication materials used for the optical fibers. Normally, when I consider the material used for the fiber, we term it as the fiber materials, and one of them is a silica or a sand. So silica or sand is an abundant source which is available right now. So uh, it is making the cost very low because it is abundantly available. So there is no scarcity of sand for the fabrication of optical fiber. So that makes the point to be valid as a potential low cost. Then we have a disadvantages of optical fiber communications. So some of the disadvantage what we consider here is high initial cost. So initial cost of the optical fiber and its installation or configuration is very high. So that is one of the drawback. Then maintenance and repairing cost. As we already discussed in our advantages, maintenance is very less. But if maintenance is required, the cost of maintenance will be very high. So since the repairing cost will be very high. So that is a drawback of this particular fiber. Then joining and test procedures. When I consider a process of joining, whenever we want to join the optical fibers, it is very difficult to join the optical fibers due to its size, because we already know that the diameter of the optical fiber is very less, even lesser than the diameter of the human hair. So it is very difficult to join two human hairs. In a similar way, it is very difficult to join two optical fibers. So that is one of the disadvantage of the fiber. And test procedures. So once the optical fibers are joined, the testing has to be done. It means that what is the optical power coupled into the fiber and what is the optical power uh, obtained from the fiber, or input optical power versus the output optical power. So optical power launched into the fiber with the loss leads to the optical power output with the loss of information. So that is what we want to consider here. Then tensile stress. So that is a major drawback. So uniform distribution of the pressure has to be done on an optical fiber. If not, then it may damage the optical fiber. So that is one of the disadvantages. And whenever I consider the optical fiber, it is a very good application. It has got a very good application if I consider a long haul applications. It is well suited for long haul applications or long distance applications, but it is not suited for short optical links, because the cost of installation will be very high if I consider the link to be very short. Then fiber losses. Fiber losses are very high. So that is a disadvantage, not the transmission loss or the attenuation. Fiber losses includes so many types of losses like bending losses in optical fibers, dispersion in optical fibers, scattering in optical fibers, then core losses in optical fibers, cladding losses in optical fibers, connector losses in optical fibers, and splicer losses in optical fibers, totally constituting the total loss in optical fiber. So it is a major drawback of the optical fiber, but it is better in comparison with the conventional cables. Then we have applications of optical fiber communications. So normally we can have so many applications discussed, but here we have only two which is normally used using the optical fibers, that is the telephone networks and urban broadband service networks. And this broadband service networks may include its application under banking application, under banking, under any educational institutions, under any defense applications, or any other smaller enterprises. So that is the application of optical fiber. Then if I consider the optical fiber waveguides, so it is similar to this structure, three-layer structure. One is having a core, one is a cladding, and one is the outer layer, which is an insulator. And the inner material, which is a core, has got a refractive index, which is represented as N1, and the refractive index of the cladding, which is the outer layer, as N2. And normally for efficient light to propagate in a fiber, N1 should be always greater than N2. So that is the refractive index of core should be always greater than the refractive index of the cladding. So that was about the basics of optical communication, advantages, disadvantages, applications, and the waveguides with the block diagram of optical communication. So now let us discuss about the basics of optical rays, or normally a light. So how the reflection happens, how the refraction happens in a optical fiber. So if I consider the process of reflection, you can see that the ray is incident on a particular surface, and this surface is termed as a reflective surface or the incident surface. And the refractive index of both the surfaces may be same, or both the surfaces may be different. So if I consider the reflection to happen, the angle of incidence will be equal to the angle of reflection. So the reflected ray and the incident ray will be equal. And the normal is which is perpendicular to the reflective surface. So it is representing the angle which is the incident angle equal to the reflected angle, which is indicating the law of reflection. So this is a reflection. So we can see that in refraction also. Refraction is normally a bending of light ray whenever it enters from one medium of different refractive index into another medium of different refractive index. So we can see that here we have a less dense medium, which is air. Normally the refractive index of air is termed as N naught, represented as N naught, and with 1 or 1.0, and more dense medium glass, so it is something around 1.5. So that is more dense medium, and whatever the angle is incident on this, the angle gets refracted into the medium. We can see that the angle or the ray is right. So this is refracted ray and this is unrefracted ray. So this is about reflection and refraction. And we have a definition to be discussed: refractive index. Refractive index is denoted as small n, and it is normally described as the ratio of the speed of light in air to the speed of light in the medium. So speed of light in the air is nothing but in vacuum, which is 3 into 10 power 8 meters per second. So that is the speed of light in air or vacuum, and the speed of light in that particular medium. So it differs from medium to medium. So the refractive index for vacuum and air is 1. So that is what we consider. And for water it is 1.3, and for glass it is 1.5. Then Snell's law. So this is the basic law used for any light. So N1 sine theta 1 or sine phi 1 is equal to N2 sine phi 2 or theta 2. So any representation for the angle can be considered either theta or phi for representing it. So from this I can write N1 by N2 is equal to sine of the angle divided by the sine of an angle, that is phi 2 and phi 1. So if I consider the angle of incidence as phi 1 and the angle of refraction is phi 2. So considering this concept, and n1 greater than n2 with the two different mediums with the two different refractive indices n1 and n2. I can write that C by V1, that is, we know that refractive index N is defined as C by V earlier in the definition. So using that concept, I can say that N1 is equal to C by V1 and N2 is equal to C by V2, which is equal to sine of phi 2 divided by sine of phi 1. So if I cancel out this C and C because they are the velocity of light in air or vacuum, then V2 by V1 will be equal to sine of angle divided by sine of the angle phi 1. So this is how we have an expression for V2 and V1. Then we have a critical angle. So this is a very important definition as concerned in this unit or module. So critical angle. So here we can define it as the minimum angle of incidence at which the ray strikes the interface of two medium or media and causes an angle of refraction equal to 90 degrees. Normally when we see that the angle of incidence and the angle of refraction will never be equal to 90 degrees. But in this case, if the angle considered to be minimum as the angle of incidence at which the ray strikes the interface of two different media and causes an angle of refraction equal to 90 degrees, then we call it as a critical. So here we can see that in the diagram, the ray is incident onto the surface and the ray gets refracted here actually, but it is making an angle 90 degree with the normal, or it is in parallel with the interfacing surface. So here we can see that this angle will be equal to critical angle. So the minimum angle with which the refracted ray makes 90 degree with the normal is the critical angle. So this is how we are going to define a critical angle. Then here if I consider critical angle, at critical angle we have the angle of incidence equal to the angle of the critical angle, and the angle of refraction will be equal to 90 degree. So using a Snell's law, recalling it, we can see that n1 into sine of a incident angle is equal to n2 into sine of the refracted angle. So we just substituted the angle of incidence is related to the medium which is air, and that is equal to n2 by n1 into sine of angle which is the refracted angle, which is 90 degree. So here we can see that it is 90 degree. So sine of 90 degree. Therefore, sine 90 degree will be equal to 1. We know that from the trigonometric function, sine of an angle 90 will be equal to 1. Therefore, sine of the angle theta naught or phi naught will be equal to n2 by n1 into 1, which is n2 by n1. So I can say that critical angle is equal to phi naught equal to sine inverse of this n2 by n1, and this can also be written as phi c equal to sine inverse of n2 by n1, because the angle of incidence is nothing but the critical angle. So this is how we define a critical angle from a Snell's law and the angle of refraction and the derivation or result for critical angle, or an expression for critical